Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing well and hope y'all are surviving the heat wave we're having up here in North America. It's been crazy hot out west. We hit 112 degrees yesterday, 44 Celsius. Today we're only supposed to get up to 109, 42 Celsius, but I don't care who you are, where you're from, that's too ding dong hot. But that's my problem. So, anyway, stay hydrated. Hope everybody is uh, managing it. And thank you, gods of air conditioning. um, Today, we're going to talk about modeling plane, the modeling plane, and the zero planes. And there is some confusion about two different contexts of zero plane. And this I've gotten over the last 2 weeks, I've gotten a lot of questions on this. There's a lot of confusion. And I'm going to try my best to kind of maybe clear up that confusion and hopefully give you guys a little bit of clarity. So if you have any questions about modeling plane or zero planes in any context, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat. I've got a few questions already queued up, but I'll try to get to them in due course. But first, I wanted to say uh, thank you, as I do every week, to my friend Steve over at Harneal Media. You see him here in the chat. He's my only moderator, and I don't know whether he wants to be or not. Um, but hey, we're all in this together, and that pretty much includes Steve. I mean, what he does is different from what I do, but he's there for us. And that is a huge, huge benefit. If you're coming at CNC from a standpoint of you wanting to put products or services out to the public, and you want to offer the things that you make, or you want to offer your designs of what you're creating to people, there's no better way to do it than with your own website, simply because you're in complete control 100% of the time. You're not paying additional commissions. You're not competing with other makers on some of these big sites like Etsy or eBay. You are putting all of your products and services out there for the public at large. This is not to say that this is an alternative to Etsy. It's a bonus. It's added to. You can drive traffic to your website so that folks can see everything that you have, everything that you can do. Excuse me. Not only that, but it adds legitimacy to your brand. The thinking is if you don't care enough about your brand to have your own website, why should somebody else? Believe me, it's a big, big help. Another benefit is if you're thinking about getting into any of these affiliate programs, Amazon, Home Depot has an affiliate program, Lowe's has an affiliate program. Almost all of them require you to have a website that is current. The only website creator or webmaster that I will ever recommend is Steve over at Harneal Media. And the main reason I do that is because, number one, he gives you performance. He doesn't give you excuses. Number two, it's 100% personalized service. When you deal with Harneal Media, you deal with Steve, nobody else, not some nameless, faceless person in a call center somewhere. You deal with Steve. Number three, he's very competitively priced, and you wonder how he does it so cheap eventually. So there's a link to Harneal Media in every video and live stream on this channel, and it's that way for a reason. Do yourself a favor, hit Harneal Media, hit that contact us link, and send him a message. He'll get back to you. and see how he can work with you and work for you. Thank you for everything that you do, Steve. I mean, I can't count the ways. All right. So let's go ahead and get into this simply because there's a lot of confusion. And that confusion comes mainly when you're talking about importing a 3D model, whether it be into Aspire or VCarve, because you start talking about zero planes and zero plane placement. Before we can even get into any of that, we need to discuss the modeling plane. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Aspire in. Now I'm using Aspire, but all of this is 100% identical in VCarve Desktop and VCarve Pro. Okay. First, we're going to talk about the modeling plane. Now, the way to think about this from a very beginner's perspective is think of modeling in VCarve or Aspire as building blocks. You've got a whole bunch of building blocks and you want to create, let's say, for instance, a pyramid or a tower. Before you can place the first block, you have to have a surface to place that on. You can't just hold a block in midair and expect it to stay there. There has to be something there to put those building blocks on top of. That's what a modeling plane is. That's where you start building up those components. Now, folks will ask, isn't the modeling plane set here in job setup? I'm setting my Z0 position to the material surface. No, that is not necessarily the modeling plane, because remember, the model is going to be carved into that surface. So that surface is going to go away. But the software still needs a foundation to build up those components on. So setting your Z0 to the material surface is not establishing a modeling plane. That's just establishing where the top of your material is. So no, that's not the modeling plane at all. The modeling plane is best viewed over here. In fact, the only way you can view it really is over here in your 3D view. And it's this ghostly kind of piece of material that takes on the color that you set over here in job setup in material settings. Right now it's set to Canadian maple. If I set it to, let's say, medium wood, you'll notice it changed color. I click OK, and it's still kind of grayed out and ghostly. Well, that's because there's nothing here yet. We haven't added any components. So when we put components into our component tree, let's say we go over here to clip art and I jump in here and I grab easily the most common, a dome and dish. I'm going to go for a fairly shallow dome slash dish, and we'll just click and drag one over here to the center of our material. Now we have a component and you can see it takes on that appearance. This is the modeling plane, and we've added our first component to that plane. This modeling plane is that foundation that we're going to start building up on or subtracting from in the case of a dish. Question: the modeling plane equates to the size of the material in setup. From Kurt over at Crafty Jans. Yes, the modeling plane equates to the size of the material. The software at this point doesn't know how big of a model we're going to create. So it's going to assume you're going to use the entire piece of material. Well, when you get your model completed, when you get it finished, it now knows where the modeling plane is. It now knows where your models are, but it doesn't quite yet know what you want to carve. We'll get into that later on. But as it sits, yes, the modeling plane is equal to the size of the material that you have. Okay. Now, Ellen says, my view of how I'm sitting, the dome looks like a big hole from here. Yes. And that can be, an optical illusion, but you can see that it is a dome. Okay. Any models that we put out here now are going to be added to the top of that modeling plane. Because again, it's like the tabletop that you're building your building block pyramid on top of. That's all it is. That's all a modeling plane is it's a surface to build up from. It doesn't have any thickness. It doesn't have any height. It's just something there to allow you to visualize what the model is going to look like after it's completed. And it's a reference for the software to know where these models are starting from. Okay. Now, again, remember that the software creates the model. It models from the bottom up. So just like when you're stacking blocks one on top of the other, it's going to take that bottom block and anything you add after that is going to go on top. You can't put it off to the side. It's going to go up. Now you can put something else off to the side of your modeling plane, but it's going to be within that first level. Let's put this out here too. I'll double click to put one in the center of my material. And now we're going to put it over here. So I have two objects on the modeling plane beside each other, but they're still sitting on that basic tabletop. If that makes sense. So we'll go back up to a straight top view here, and we'll look at our components. We now have two components. This was the first one added. This was the second one added. It starts from the bottom up. Now these two don't interact with one another, so that's fine. But now let's get into the first discussion of the zero plane. And that is, when do you use one? No, let's back up from that. Let's back up to what a zero plane actually is. Back over here in the design tab, and I'm going to jump over to my 2D view. So I've got my two components placed out here. Everything is fine. What a zero plane is it is an additional 3D component that has no height and it has no thickness. Okay, so in that regard, it is similar to the modeling plane, but that's where that similarity ends, is that it's another plane that has no height and has no thickness to it. The other main difference between a zero plane And a modeling plane is you can add height and thickness to a zero plane. Sargon, thank you very much for the $25 super chat. You really are easily the most generous person I know, and you are appreciated more than you could ever know. Thank you very much. I truly appreciate it, and I truly appreciate you. Oh man, you guys. A zero plane can also be manipulated in that you can tilt a zero plane or fade a zero plane, which you cannot do with the modeling plane. Again, the modeling plane is the flat surface that you're building up your components on. So for a zero plane over here in Aspire, you have to hold down Shift and click this first icon, which is creating a flat shape component. Hold down Shift and it'll create a zero plane. Now, why would you want a zero plane? Why are zero planes used? How are zero planes used? When we're talking about the context of a design software, zero planes are most commonly used, but not always, but most commonly used when whatever you're carving is placed into a dish. The reason for that is, if we come back over here to my 3D view, and I'm going to select this component here, my dome, I'm going to go into the component library, or the component tree, make sure I have that dish highlighted. I'm going to right click and go into the properties. Now we can see here in the properties, we have a shape height, base height of 0, and we have a combine mode. Now the combine mode for this dome right now is set to merge, meaning that anything beneath it, it's going to merge with that component. Well, there are no components beneath it. But if you look at this, it looks like an upside down letter U. We're going to change that to subtract. And now what it's done is it's formed a dish instead of a dome. We still have the combine mode set to merge here, but now this is a dish. Now, where does the zero plane come into this? And why would you use it on a dish? Well, holy cow, Michael Bernasconi, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Again, you guys are more than generous. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see. Why would you use it in making a dish? Well, because if we look over here at our dish, we can see these ragged edge right here. And that's caused by the pixels used in the bitmap that creates this dish. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. We come over here to the 2D view, and we see that this is basically a depth map, a grayscale bitmap image. Let me rephrase that. Although it is in grayscale, it's not truly a grayscale image. In other words, what I'm getting at is while you can take a grayscale image and import it into Aspire and make a 3D component from that grayscale image, It's not the same as a depth map. The depth map, you'll notice these shades of gray, and for those of you keeping score, there are 256 of them. These shades of gray, you can't really see a gradient. You can't see a dividing line between this lighter color and this darker color, or this darker color and this one, like you would if you created a gradient in a imaging program. But if you look out here at the edge, you can start to see the pixels that make up this bitmap image. It's these pixels where it goes from this very light gray to bright white that form these jagged edges. And that's as close as I can get to it. It's those pixels that create that jagged edge. Okay? So where a zero plane comes into play, and again, remember, a zero plane is a 3D component that has no height or no thickness. A zero plane is added, let me close this, to cap off the top surface of our 3D model. Remember, all of our components gathered together in total make up the 3D model. So adding a zero plane to the top of it, let me get one created here, hold down shift and click on that button, and we've now added a zero plane. We've added a 3D component with no height, with no thickness, and it's set to combine with this component. And when it combines this component and this component, you can see how that zero plane fills in those jagged edges. It's simply the way it combines with this dish to fill in these jagged edges so that the bit doesn't attempt to carve those jagged edges. This is the main purpose of a zero plane. It's not the only purpose, but this is the most common use you're ever going to find of a zero plane. Now, I mentioned earlier, click off here. I mentioned earlier that you can modify a zero plane. You can. If I come over here to my component tree, there's my zero plane right there. I can select it. I can right click, come down to properties, and I can give that zero plane a base height. I can't give it a shape height because the shape height is 0. But I can give it a base height, which will add thickness below the zero plane. So if I give a base height of, let's go with a 1/4 inch, and it updates, I have now moved that zero plane up, but now my dish has disappeared. It has filled in that dish. So I can't do that because it's going to fill in that dish. But I can come here and give it a negative height, a negative base height. But again, come on. It's taking a while for the software to catch up. Come on. Yep, there we go. Come on, let's go with negative. This poor computer. It's trying to say, there we go. By dropping that zero plane down, it's going to cut into the dish. There we go. Making our dish shallower than it needs to be, than we want it to be. So we can adjust it. It will come in handy on occasion, but I'm going to take it back to 0 the way it's supposed to be. And now it's not interfering with our components. Click off, close my properties. So a 0 plane is most commonly used, and its main purpose is to act as another component that will interact with everything beneath it and fill in any missing pixels here caused by the pixelization of our dish. Now, I'm mentioning dishes quite often. Without getting too technical, without getting too technical, again, that's the main use of a 0 plane. Now, there are other uses for a 0 plane, but those come with more advanced 3D modeling that is way above my head. Michael Mazalik would be the better source for that. A.L. Peleg says, so it makes the height of everything above it to be 0. No, it doesn't change the height of any component above it. It's, let's go back over here to the 3D view, and you can see that because I have my 0 plane right here, but this oval is still projecting above that 0 plane. See that? If you would take any other model and place a 0 plane into it, it will cut above it. Yes, it will. The 0 plane is acting like in our tower of blocks, it's acting as another sheet between some blocks. So we can build up blocks and then lay that solid sheet over the top and then continue to build on top of it. And that solid sheet basically helps to fill in the cracks between the blocks. Okay. So will the second component get 90-degree sides from the minus number? This second component here is basically going to be carved down to the level of this 0 plane. So on this, depending upon how you set your tool path to carve, let's take a look at this flat round oval. Let's see its properties. Its shape height is 1/4 of an inch tall. If I go to 1/2 inch tall, it's still going to be 1/2 inch above this plane. Now look at my readouts down here in this corner when they appear. I'm up here at the surface. That surface is 0. If I put this up here on the top of this, it's 1/2 inch. There may be more base down below it, but it's going to count from here. As Michael Mazalik says, a 0 plane equals a limiting plane. This is where that's as deep as it's going to cut, except over here. Anything above, anything with a higher Z than this will be cut above it. Anything with a lower shape height is going to be cut into it. So if I understand you, on multiple zero planes, you can only have one per level in the component tree. I haven't tried multiple zero planes, but let's give it a shot. We'll go up here and we'll insert a new level. And in this level, come over, make sure I'm working in level 2. Let's see if I can add a zero plane in level 2. And it appears that I can add a zero plane on a separate level. Now, let me come back down to level 1 and see if I can add a second zero plane. I don't think you can, and to be honest, I'm not sure of an application where you would need more than one zero plane on one level, but because it is confusing, you would have to rename each plane. So let's go ahead and try and look in my component tree, and it did allow me to make more than one zero plane on that level. But you would probably want to rename these, and generally speaking, for their purpose. So let me go ahead and get rid of this one, and I will delete that one, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this one too, because I have no use for it for this discussion. And we'll delete the level as well. Boom. Okay. All right. So remember, this is in the design context. We'll let this reload. Looking at the bottom, we're still good. Okay. Nothing going through. All right. So, and I'm also going to get rid of this oval just simply because it's a distraction to me. There we go. This is something in the software. This poor computer's having a hard time keeping up. Let me get back over here into my regular selection. This zero plane should come out here to the extents of my material, but all the playing with zero planes has done this. Now, we come over here to the 2D view. We've got the model for our dish, but if I come up here to layers, there is a layer for the zero plane. So the zero plane is created on its own layer, not its own level, its own layer. But by default, it's turned off to avoid confusion. Now, if I turn that zero plane on, there it is. That's what happened. I moved the zero plane. So let's move that back up there so that it's covering the middle of the material. But you see what can happen is you can turn that zero plane on and you can change its shape. Or change its size rather. But now you have this zero plane there and it becomes a distraction. So by default, the zero plane is turned off so that you can still see it. But do know that it makes its own layer. Now, once again, in the 3D view, we have it covering the whole sheet of material. Now, this seems pretty simple, but this creates a bit of confusion. The main purpose of a zero plane is to, again, fill in any rough edges on a dish. That's the main use. You can add a zero plane without using a dish. And in that case, as Michael pointed out, it's a limit plane. It's going to limit the depth of the carve to this surface right here. Meaning that the bit won't carve any deeper than this. So let me go back over here, and I'm going to, I think what I'll do is I'll start a new sheet. Yes, I'll do that. So I'll add a new sheet with exactly the same settings. I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to call it sheet 2. And I'm going to change over to sheet 2. All right. And I'm going to get into something else here. There's another context for a zero plane, and that is when you're importing a 3D model. Okay. Russell says it's limit planes I can't figure out. Carving a 3D two-sided model, I need limit planes for both sides, but not always at the same level. Yes, that's when limit planes can be used. You would, if for instance, you have a model you're cutting about halfway through the material on the top of this model. Then when you flip it over, you want to cut just beyond the halfway point for the other side of the model. You can set a limit plane and bring it down below halfway. And that way, when it cuts through the object, it'll cut about halfway here. Then when you flip it over, which I'm not going to do because there is liquid in this, it would cut beyond that halfway point so you don't have that line around your object that you're now going to have to sand off. So yes, that's perfect. Perfect example. Now, let me get back over here to sheet 1 because there was another question. We'll get back over to sheet 1. Come here. There we go. Now, Ellen asks, do you have to bake everything? LOL, a make and bake. And yes, I will show when to use the zero plane. And in fact, I already am. If you're creating a dish, use a zero plane. You will have a much better result with that zero plane. Now, if we come over here to the component tree and we go into, let's say, the zero plane, we go into properties, there's an option to bake. Now, what baking does, let me close this. This may or may not be a good example. Let's take the zero plane, hold down shift, and let's click dome dish. Now, if I right click, no, it's not there. Where is it? Oh, it's out in my design. Never mind. There is an option to, where is it? Bake those components into a single new component. What you're doing basically is right now, you have 2 separate pieces. If you bake these, going to properties, bake. If you bake these, you have made it one piece. It's no longer 2 pieces. So let's go ahead and let's do that. We've got both of these selected. We've got our shape height figured out. Let's bake them. Now when we come over here, and we'll close this. Now when we come over here to our component tree, we have a dome dish baked. We can look at it. Uh-oh, what happened? It's no longer a dish. It's now a dome. Can I control Z that? Yes, I can control Z that. What we have is we've got varying different combine modes. So let's take the combine mode, change that to subtract. What does that do? Nothing outwardly. Let's select the level. Let's check the combine mode. And let's make that subtract. There's your problem. Take that back to add. There we go. I faded the limit plane to avoid resurfacing a limestone text carve. Okay, okay, okay. Jim Brown says, so if you have 3 layers of 3 different woods, how would you use the zero plane? I wouldn't. You can, I guess you could set them. I see where you're going with this. I would have to explore it a little bit, Jim. You can use them to represent where, if you're gluing, say, maple, then cherry, then maple again, and you want to carve something in that maple, but not all the way through the cherry. You could set zero planes to limit you to this part of the model, cut down the thickness of your maple, then this part, a zero plane here. But I would have to explore that. I've not explored that at all. Try it yourself. And when you create those zero planes, name one, for my example, maple, then cherry, then walnut, or whatever, maple 2 or whatever. Let me explore that because that's pretty cool. That's actually a pretty cool idea. By baking these two, now that I have the combine modes set correctly, I can go into properties and bake them, and they should come out correct. Nope, it still wants to become positive instead of a negative. So you see, Ellen, you don't want to bake. Control Z to undo that. Bring me back to my point here. Now, where baking comes into effect is if you have, let's say, let's get into some clip art here, and we're going to take our representative mascot, Wally Gator, and put him down in the bottom of this dish. Hold down Shift, and let's reduce his size. There's Wally. Okay. All right. Now, got the gator down in the bottom of the dish. Let me go into my component tree. I would probably want to move my alligator down below the zero plane. But if I take these two and bake them, and now, come on. Ah, it flipped the opposite direction. What am I doing wrong, Michael? I'm doing something wrong here. That is set to subtract. Why would I do that? For some reason now changing the combine mode to the baked. Okay, I get it. All right. Changing that combine mode. Now, you notice I no longer have the alligator and the dish. And now they are one piece. I can no longer change the size of the gator, and I would have to Control Z to unbake them or start over. You don't have to bake. You can. And in fact, Michael Mazalik taught me this quite a bit. Either baking or, let me Control Z that to undo it so that I have, okay, I want my alligator and my dish back. All right, there's my alligator and my dish. What he has taught me is select these two Then, is it up here under model? I believe it's create component from visible model. I believe that's it. To create a component from these two. It doesn't replace these two. What it does is it creates a component. I need to hide the zero plane. There you go. Shut off the zero plane. There we go. Now with those two selected, model, create component from, or I can bake these components, or I can create components from visible model. And now it adds another model. It doesn't replace these two. And in fact, I need to turn them off. So now I have one piece. This is all one piece. It's no longer two. And that's this up here. So I could call this, I could rename it, call it dish gator. But if I find a problem, if I need to change something, I can turn this off, turn these two back on, make my changes, then come back and make a new dish gator. So you can bake the melon, but you don't have to. It's not a necessary step. Okay. So let me go ahead and get rid of dish gator and turn my zero plane back on. I think I have to turn on dish gator. Yes, I do. Grab it and delete it. Shaboom. Okay. So, all right, let me get back up here. I'm missing some questions. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, that's what Michael just explained to me here. Could it have been after baking your baked stuff are negative, and the fact that the combine mode is subtract is what makes it to be a dome again? Yes, minus negative. Yes, which sounds counterintuitive. You know, a negative plus a negative does not necessarily equal a positive, but you know, that's in essence what happened. So, all right. Um, Let's see here. John Thompson wants to know, would that be if you were cutting, say, 3 models, one in each layer of 3 different woods? Would the multiple layers be good? I think you mean a multiple zero planes. Excuse me. So if I wanted this to, cutting this to start at the material surface, and then let's go back over here to clip art. I don't know. I'm just picking things out of thin air here. I wanted this cut way down deeper. Yes, I could create another zero plane here and drop that zero plane way down so that this fish, instead of being added to the top of this model, it was added, say, down here somewhere. So yes, I could do that, John. Now let me Control Z because I don't want that fish there. And I don't want it there either. Shaboom. Oops. Control Y. Yep, I'm going to have to just go into the component tree and get rid of the fish. Delete. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. CAD CAM Wizard. So the Z plane was limiting the embossment, so it was forced to go up, even though it was set to subtract. Yes. Yes. Brooks Martin, can you clip the zero plane to a vector? I believe you can. So let's go give that a shot. For instance, let's go into the 2D view. I want a circle. Whoops. Let's do this the right way, Mark. Close, delete. What is the size of my dish? The size of my dish is 5.53. Let's make that 5.5. Okay, so I'm going to create a circle, 5.5 inches. And I'll come out here to the center of my material, click. Didn't quite get to the center. I don't think I centered any of this up. In fact, I'm almost sure I didn't. Nope, I didn't. All right, well, here's what we're going to do. Thank you, Justin Wilson. And now we'll move that to the center, go into my component, select my alligator, and we'll put that in the center. All right, so now we're good. Come over here to the 3D view, and now I have a vector here. I've got my 0 plane. In Aspire, you do this one way, well, one of two ways. Or in VCarve, there's one way to do it, and that is to use level clipping. In Aspire, I can select that vector and then come down here to clear the area of the selected component outside of that vector. So select the 0 plane, hold down Shift, select the vector, and let's try that again. And the 0 plane is gone. But it's outside of the edge. Let me click off of that vector. It's outside of the edge, so it should fill in. Maybe I need a little bit larger. I think I need a little bit larger because it trimmed away the whole thing. Okay, Control Z. And let's make the size of this vector, let's make it 6.5. Delete 6. Apply. Okay, close. Back up to the top here. We'll select our 0 plane, hold down Shift, select the vector, and clear the component outside of that vector. Now my 0 plane is gone out here, but still here filling in my edges. So let's see here. I clearly remember we already had a live stream about this. I think it would be wise to first focus on all the combined modes and only then look at what the 0 plane does when added to the model, and not focus primarily on the dish edge use case. We already have AL. We've already done a couple of live streams on the combined modes, and I have edited videos about the combined modes. This is addressing specific questions about the 0 plane. And I'm about to get into the other use, which has caused a lot of confusion, and one that I had direct questions about. And that is getting into sheet 2 over here, importing a 3D model. Now, this is the same in VCarve and Aspire. If we come over here to import a 3D model, import a 3D model, and I'm going to go in here and find there's my 3D files folder. I'm going to use this mantle clock face and open that. And that brings us into the import window. Now, right Let's get it sized and positioned first. The first thing I see is this is in inches, so we're good there. And I'm going to center the model. Right off the bat, the model is bigger than my material, so that's a mistake on my part. I need to fix that. In fact, let me cancel this. I'm going to go in and I'm going to change this sheet 2, select it. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to make that sheet 25 inches long, 25.0. Very high. Okay. Now I'll go back and import. So we'll import a 3D model. And again, I'm going to select the mantle clock face. And again, I'm going to center the model. So the model is centered on my material. Okay. I'm within the XY bounds of my material. If these numbers were crazy high, that tells me it was drawn in metric. If it's 250 units wide here in X, it was drawn in metric. So you would scale millimeter to inches, and that would reduce it down to the size in inches. By the same token, if you were to import something and it's ridiculously small, 10 millimeters wide in X, it was drawn in imperial, you would select millimeters for your units and then scale millimeters to inches, and that would scale it up to the right size. So I've got my position. I'm looking at the top. I've got it, the size correct. I've centered my model so it's within the bounds of my material. Wendell, thank you very, very much for the super chat. I appreciate it greatly. I really do. Thank you. Now we're going to position it and import it. I've got the initial orientation correct. I've got the sizing correct. We're good. Now we're going to position and import. And this is where people get confused because there's a zero plane in here too. But it has nothing to do with the zero plane on the design side. What this is this is deciding where this model is placed and how much of it is being imported. Now, we see this gray plane right here. And if we kind of turn over here to the front, we can see where that gray plane is right here. But there's a bunch more of this model. This gray plane is also called a zero plane. That doesn't confuse anybody, right? I've been doing this for a couple of weeks and it confuses me. But it's kind of a misunderstanding of terminology more than anything else. This is not the same thing as the zero plane in the design side. This is used strictly to figure out where zero is going to be in relation to this model. It's similar to the modeling plane in that regard, but not quite. Again, the modeling plane is that tabletop where we're going to stack our blocks. This is kind of an think of it as a way of slicing those blocks in half or in quarters or what have you. Do you want to import that whole square building block, or do you just want to import the top half? That's what this design is doing. Or excuse me, that's what this plane is doing. It's allowing us to figure out we may not want these 2 steps down. We may not want these roses. We may want everything. Well, if we want everything, now we're looking at dragging that plane all the way to the bottom, all the way to the bottom. And we're now importing all of the model. Now, there is one thing that scares people, and that is you see here a representation of our material. Now, we kind of lucked out in that with this model, it's only about a 1/2 inch thick. So it's going to fit well within our material block. But what if our material is 3/4 inch thick and the model is 1 inch? When we flip it over and look at it from one of these views here, it's going to stick out of our material block. And in fact, this one does stick out over the top of the material block. That can be fixed after the import. It's going to import the whole thing. That's the function of this, to figure out how much of this model is going to be imported and where the bottom of that model is. So think of this 0 plane as just positioning what areas of this model are you going to import. If like this one, it sticks out of the top of our material block, that's fine. It's okay. Because look how high up it is in the material block. We can adjust this after it's imported. So don't freak out if it sticks up out of the top of the material block. It's okay. Let me flip over here to the top again. Whoops. I double clicked it instead of single clicking it. So what we have here is we have depth below the top is a 1/2 inch. My slider is all the way to the bottom. That means the entire model is above this plane. It's going to import the entire model. Let me play around here and adjust it just a little bit and show you what happens when I slide this up. You'll see that we're starting to get, you can see that the model is retracting down into that plane, and suddenly these are grayed out and out of focus. These things are not going to be imported. We want this whole thing imported. So we need to drag this down and make sure we're good. This 0 plane here has nothing to do with the 0 plane we used in the design window. They are 2 separate things. Now this up here says position it relative to the modeling plane. Yes, that is true, but again, only in the context of this import window. We're just setting how much of this model is being imported. And when you want all of it, regardless of how thick it is and how thick your material is, drag that slider all the way to the bottom. Now we have choices of creating both sides of the model. This model doesn't have another side. It's not like there's a mirrored version of this down below, like there would be if this was, say, a cylinder or something. Discard data below the 0 plane. If there is something down here, like for instance, if there was a stem from one of these roses that stuck down and you didn't want it, you would discard the data below this 0 plane. You don't want it imported. You can highlight any undercuts. There are no undercuts in this model, so we're good there. So that's not really necessary. Now we can import it, finish the import, and that is now brought into our software. We can go to the top. And now is when we can adjust that model height. For instance, once imported, you can also adjust the model height in the component properties. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me go back to the top. Hello. There we go. And we'll go over to the component tree. I'll select that model. We'll go into properties. And we have a model height of just less than a ½ inch. If I want that to be thicker, let's say 0.625. Whoops, not 2 decimal points, Mark. 625. That's the most common mistake I make, is entering 2. Jim Brown says that would make a good mantle clock. I hear the gears turning, Jim. You're thinking make that out of sapele on like a cherry base, or vice versa, a cherry face on a sapele base. I hear the gears turning. Do it. Do it. So now I have made this a lot thicker. It's going to stand a lot prouder. But that's still not the final thickness that I have to go with. Now, in this case, for instance, I would not use a zero plane for this because there's no reason to. Yes, it looks kind of raggedy here, but that can be cleaned up with a profile or a pocket if I wanted to recess this face. Same without here. It may look a little raggedy, but we're going to try, and the same here, but we're going to try it without a zero plane. And we'll see what happens. Now, a minute ago, I said that the properties was not the final place where you're going to select the model thickness, or where you can select the model thickness. That's over here in material setup. Before you do any 3D carves, if it doesn't open automatically, if you go to click 3D finishing or 3D roughing toolpaths, if it doesn't automatically do it, by all means go into material setup. Now let's see if this is automatically going to do it. Yes, it sent me into material setup. My material thickness is 3/4 of an inch. Okay, that's fine. My XY datum is set to the bottom left corner. That's where I'm going to set my XYZ0 outside. My Z0 is the material surface. Yes. And now here is model position in the material. As it sits right now, I've got this gap under the bottom of the material represented right here. The bottom of my model is right here on my modeling plane. In the material, that's going to leave me with an 1/8 of an inch thickness. And that may be exactly what I want. Then again, it might not be. I can move this model within this block of material. This lighter brown area here is showing me where the model is. The dark brown area is an area that's not going to be cut. It's not a part of the model. It's been my experience that if I leave this way up here at the top, whoops, that's what I want to do. I run the risk of leaving flat spots up here on top, because let's say the top of this ring, the Z is 0. The software is not going to calculate a cut where it's 0. But where that Z height is 0 could be a 1/16 of an inch wide. It's going to leave a 1/16 of an inch wide flat spot. So what I like to do is I like to put a gap above the model of 0.01 or 10 thousandths of an inch. Now, if we look over here at this little diagram, our model is shifted down. This area is not the model. So it's going to carve through this to get to the model. Now, you don't have to have that. You can put it down in the middle. You can see as I slide it down, it's now put that model in the center of the material. So it's got to carve through all of this to get to the model. And then leave me with a 1/16 of an inch thickness below the model. I prefer to use a 0.01 to keep the model up as high within the material as I can get. But if I look down here, I have my model thickness. The Z position of my modeling plane is 0.635. So what that did was it took my model thickness, 0.625, and it added that 10 thousandths of an inch to it. So that's where this modeling plane is sitting within my material. Now, if I've decided that, you know what, that's a little bit too thick, I don't like this flat base underneath these roses, I want to bring that down, I can now get in here and click this set button next to model thickness, and I can enter a new height right here. Let's say I've decided that I want it to be 0.5. Then click apply, and we'll see my model change in the background as soon as I close this. Now, come on, catch up. Catch up, software. This poor thing. Did it do it? No, it didn't do it. Okay. 0.5. Apply. There it went. All right. Now I can close it. But now I need to readjust my gap. So I'll just do 0.01. That moves my model way up here. My model thickness is 0.4. My modeling plane height is 0.41. Wait a minute, I set that to be 0.5. Let's try that again, Rabbit. Yeah, I set it to be 0.5. Apply. And close. Wow, what's going on here? What a revolting development this is. I wonder, is it too many things going on this poor computer? 0.5. Apply. There it went. Okay. Wow. Close. Wait just a rock picking minute. Come on, what's going on here? I said I wanted. Ain't it fun to watch me argue with my software? Apply. Close. Okay, now my model thickness is 0.5. Did I hit the wrong button? Oh, well. All right. And now let's change this to 0.01. And there we go. So you can, what I'm getting at is all the way over here on the components using the properties is not the only place you can set your model thickness. Because remember, this is going to model, then we'll click OK. That's good. And now that'll put us into the 3D finishing toolpath that I wanted. Well, Steve, you use nicer language when you're arguing than I do. That's only because I have my YouTube filter on. So we'll click OK. And now we're in the 3D finishing toolpath. And I can do all of my calculate my toolpath and all that other good stuff. I'm not going to do that now because this is not what this is about. But adjusting that model thickness over in, let's go back to sheet 1, adjusting that model thickness, close, over here in the material setup. Here's a good example. I have 3/4 inch thick material. I got this big in red, and this is why you want to check this. My model thickness is thicker than my material. My OK button is grayed out. It's not going to let me calculate. It's not going to do it. So I have to, and when you compile, when you get a bunch of components stacked on top of each other, this is easy to do. And to your question earlier, Ellen, when it comes to, you keep getting the error about model thickness being thicker than the material. I've got 0.802. This is where I can come and set this new thickness. Let's go for 0.7. Let's go for 0.7. 0.7. Apply. And then we'll close it. That error is gone. And now I have 0.05 gap under. I want to drag that down. Let's do a 0.01 gap above. Click OK. And now I've got this 0.1, 0.01 material here. It's going to carve through that to get to this model. Okay. Now, because this is a flat surface, I don't necessarily need that. I can set that at 0.0 because it doesn't matter if this is flat. Click OK, and that sets it at 0.0. And now it's fine. That'll carve just terrific. Okay. So right here is where you adjust the total model thickness to get it within your material. Okay. Now, excuse me, sorry about that. Let's see. Referring back to my notes. Do you need a zero plane when you're creating a dome? No, you don't. There's really no benefit unless you want the limit of the base of that dome to be in a certain position. So then you're using it as a limit plane. You're limiting how deep you're going to cut that model. The same thing can be done here if you're absolutely certain about your model thickness. But again, being able to cut something, a 3D model here, and then another 3D model over here with the zero plane in a different position, that can be done. The question specifically was, I made a dome to put a 3D model on for cribbage boards. Not sure I need a zero plane on the bottom or on the top. If it's being cut in a separate piece of material from the rest of the cribbage board, you don't need a zero plane at all. It's not needed at all. So there is that. Now, we can get further and further into this. We're a minute 20, we're an hour 20, a minute 24 seconds. We're an hour and 24 minutes into it, and I do need to wrap up. We can get further into this if you want to explore it further. Something I do want to explore further is, let me find Jim Brown, your suggestion on using the various layers of the various limit planes for different layers of material. I do want to explore that more, but I don't have time to explore that now live. Um, but if there's interest in exploring that, we can we can ding dong sure do it. Just let me know right here, right now, if that is something that you'd be interested in doing. The main point that I wanted to get across is there are two contexts in which you have a zero plane. One being import, the other being the design side. They don't have anything to do with one another. They're just called the same thing. That I think is a mistake. In the import window, it is also called the modeling plane. I think that's a more appropriate appropriate uh, name for it. But then again, it's not really the same as the modeling plane in the design side. So there might be some more confusion there. Okay, I'm getting some positive. All right. Well, we can do that next week. I'll spend a little bit of time working on this and uh, seeing about using various limit planes in various thicknesses of material. In answer to Mike Mazalik's question, will you explain how a modeling panel is used with a rotary project? Maybe in the next one. I seriously doubted I was going to get into it in this, simply because I try to limit to about an hour and a half. If we have time next time, I will. But don't run away yet, y'all. Don't run away yet, y'all. As many have mentioned, this is the 250th live stream. And that's 100% up to you guys. That's 100% due to you guys. Keep coming back and keep wanting to hang out and spend part of your Sunday in here when you could be off with the family or working in the shop or something like that. And I've been having an absolute blast doing it. They haven't been 100% consecutive. I did take a couple of breaks in between, but when you think about it, that's a few years. And I wanted to say thank you to you guys. One of the thank yous didn't work out, and I never announced any of this because I wanted it to be saved for you, the real ones. So what I want to do is I want to give away 3 coffee cups. I want to give away 3 coffee mugs to you subscribers. And these are good quality mugs. The fact that this one is scratched up, used, and abused shouldn't mean anything to you. This is like the 3rd time I've held this in my hand, simply because I ordered this from my supplier. My wife said, "Oh, that's cool." Whoosh, off it went. So this is like the 2nd time. And yes, you have to make your own tea stains or coffee stains in it. But I'm going to give away 3 of these. All right. So what I need you to do is I need you to get in here in the chat. If you want one of these coffee mugs, and they're heavy ceramic 11-ounce mugs, they're nice. They're good for coffee. They're good for tea. They're good for hot cocoa, hot chocolate. Or if you're not a hot beverage type of a person, they're great for storing pencils and pens in. Set it on your desk and impress your friends and neighbors with my mug on your mug. Just type this into the chat exactly the way you see it right there. #coffee. No spaces, no capitalization, all one word. #coffee. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the handy dandy StreamYard giveaway tool. And when we've got all of, yeah, Linda chimed in. Yeah, it's mine and I like it. Yeah. So And she let me know once she put tea into it, coffee would never be involved in it again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 winners and um, go over, and I'll show you this when we're done here. When we're finished, try it again, Clay. You missed your C and you added a space. Just exactly how you see it right here. Hashtag coffee, no space, no capitalization. Um, and I will show you where to find my email address. So when you guys, you winners, email me your shipping address to that email address, and I will get it out to you just as quickly as my supplier can do it. So again, same as you see right there, all lowercase, no spaces. And we'll go until we've got 29 entries so far, 67 people out there. Oh, come on. Uh, Kurt over at Crafty Jan says, after I don't win, are these available on your site to order? Yes, they are available over on my website, marklindsaycnc.com. And you can purchase one if you'd like. But it's a small thing. I know I wanted to do something else, but that didn't come to fruition. I can't do it, although I tried like crazy. I just couldn't fool things to get it going. And yes, this is not, you'll notice that nothing has been said. This is worldwide. This is not continental US only. This is not sorry Canada. This is not sorry Australia. This is not sorry folks overseas. Worldwide. Okay? The supplier I go through, thank you, Steve, again from Harneo Media. Um, they have shipping facilities all over Europe. They have shipping facilities in Australia. They ship worldwide. Having said that, I cannot be responsible. I'll pay shipping. I cannot be responsible for any customs duties, import fees, or VAT. You will have to be responsible for that. Let that be fair warning. I have a friend over in the UK who won a t-shirt. By the time he paid all of that, that free t-shirt ended up costing him about $35. So if I can pay for shipping, but I can't pay for the customs duty because I don't know what it's going to be. So you will be responsible for VAT. You'll be responsible for import duties and fees. But if you want one, I will send it to you anywhere in the world. All right. So Butch Miller says, I want one even though I never had a cup of coffee in my life. Oh, you have had a sheltered life, Butch. I bet scotch would fit. Well, you know, the the uh, the, the beverage of your choice. So if you want my mug on your mug, hashtag coffee, all one word, all one word, no spaces, no lowercase. Entries have slowed down a little bit. We're down to 33. I see a few people putting something like hashtag Southern Comfort. Hey, you know, you're an adult, have the beverage of your choice. We're still at 33. Clay got his spelling corrected, and so did Jim Brown put a space, but I think he got his, he did get his corrected. And yeah, right, Steve. Come on. As a Marine fighter pilot, sheltered is not possible. Wait. I don't know if I trust a pilot that don't drink coffee. Mario Medina, small C. no capital C. And the same thing for Sargon, no capital C, small c. It will not register your entries. Just got to be just like it is right here in this banner. And have I milked this long enough? We've got 35 entries. I'll give Mario and Sargon a chance to get theirs changed. I know Steve doesn't. Steve knows everything about my website. He knows my web store. He knows the merch I have. I have t-shirts over there. I have coffee cups over there. Steve, I'm thinking about adding embroidered hats. I'm thinking about it. I just never talk about this stuff because I'm not out to make millions and millions of dollars. But I figure if you go over there to my website and you click on the shop, you'll see it. So I don't need to hype it up or talk about it. So, okay, it looks like we got 35 entries. That's half of the people here. The other half don't want a coffee cup. Okay, that's fine. That's good. I'm getting ready to push the button. Let's go ahead and draw for the first winner, and I'm going to write your name down, Heather. And remember to send me an email, and I'll show you the address in just a minute. And we're going to draw the first winner. And it is Jack in the Shop. All right. All righty. Our first winner. And it also removed your name. You can't win again. Oh, okay. Oh boy, Kurt H is saying, please add hats, Velcro strap. Oh, okay. And yes, Steve, he doesn't enter uh, drawings on sites. That's kind of like a conflict of interest. So congrats, Jack. Everybody who has already entered, you're still entered. Everybody except Jack. We'll draw again here in just a second. Again, if you want to get in on this, hashtag coffee, small c, no space. We're going to draw another one right now, and that is boom. Ellen says, yeah, better odds for me. It is, actually. And let's see. Alden Snow. All right, Alden. Okay. Again, I'll show my email address in just a minute. And like I said, send me your shipping address and I will get it out to you. These will be ordered today. It usually takes 4 or 5 days for fulfillment, but I will keep you updated and give you tracking information and everything along the way. Let's see. We have time. I don't see any new entry. Yeah, we did have one entry come in. Bob Dymock. All right. So you're entered. All right. We're getting ready to do the last one. And so anybody, I'm going to give it a couple seconds. Last call for entries. Hashtag coffee, just like you see here on my screen. Small c, no space. And we're going to be doing that in just a minute. I'm tap dancing like crazy to give you folks time to A, hear what I just said, and B, get it typed in and hit enter. And I think that's about enough. We'll go ahead and we will draw our final winner is, drum roll please. And Sargon Tavur, all right. All right. Okay. I will need shipping addresses for everybody. And again, I'll show you right now. Well, all you do is you head over to YouTube and go to my channel. All right, go to my channel right here under the banner. you see 4 more links, or you see more. Click on more. You'll come down, view my email address. You'll have to prove you're not a robot. And there's my email address right there. Okay. Shoot me an email. In the subject, put coffee mug, and I will get to you. Jack in the Shop, Alden Snow, and Sargon. I think I have your shipping address, Sargon, but I'm not 100% certain that I have it on my new computer. So please do send it to me. I would appreciate it. But that there is my email address. Just again, head over to my YouTube channel and click on more right up here. And there's just a guy in the shed, a goofball with a bunch of power tools and more. And you'll find it. Let's see. Tomorrow, channel members, we're going to work on a couple of your projects. We had Landis Stutes had question about a bitmap that we're going to work on. And Tony, the Phoenician artisan, who has an awesome Instagram, get over there and follow him. He is working on a soccer ball that he wants to do on the rotary axis. So we're going to work on those 2 projects. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what I mean, get over, and I can't show it here. Oh, yes, I can. You can click the join button here. You can click the join button next to the subscribe button here on my channel. And all that's going to happen is a panel is going to pop up and a video is going to play to tell you all about channel membership. We have a great bunch of people who are channel members, and we'd love to have you with it as with the group as well. Channel members, remember the way to find the link to my members only live streams right here in the community tab. I am not going to scroll down and show off the links in public right now. That would not be cool. But just come over here to community, scroll down, and you will see those links. And we'd love to have you. I mean, we have an absolute blast over there working on this, that, and the other. All right. Holy cow, an hour and 43 minutes. It's getting hot. It's 82 in here. It's 95 outside. Time to shut down. And next week, we'll get into more playing around with the zero plane and the modeling plane. And we'll get in a little bit deeper into some of those questions. And I will... I'll brush up on the rotary axis, Michael. Thank you for throwing that at me. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, demands for payment, all of that stuff, by all means, put them down in the comment section of this video. This is where I get ideas for these. It's comments that led to today's live stream. It's emails that led to today's live stream. This has never been about me. This is 100% about giving you the confidence to get your projects done by showing you that there is no secret to any of this. It's not over your head. There's nothing magic about it. All it takes is your willingness to sit down, get into the software, and practice with it. Just use it. There is never been a replacement for experience. And the only way to get that experience is to do this. You can do it. 9 years ago, I couldn't spell CNC. Now I've built 4 of them. And thank you for 250 live streams. Let's do 250 more if you'll hang with me. Share it with a friend. Share it with your enemy as far as that's concerned. I enjoy working with you guys, and thank you very much for everything. Sincerely. Thank you. Until next week, Y'all take care. Just relax, chill out, stay in the house for a while. It's hot out here. Have a good day, y'all. Y'all take care.